And what I'm trying to explain to you, ladies and gentlemen, is the real world that our children live in, not the ideal one that we want them to live in, not this wonderful world that we pray that will come here one day, but the real world that they have to live in. You want to know why they're acting so crazy? You want to know why they're doing the things that they're doing? Because we have not prepared them to live in this real world. We have sent them through 12 years of school teaching them this dumb stuff that doesn't work, and when they go out and try to apply it and get killed for it, we are not there to help them through.
We got to chase those crazy, chase those crazy, chase those crazy boys, chase those crazy bumpies, chase those crazy boys right out of
The late great Bob Marley. We're going to chase those crazy bald heads out of town. It's Tuesday, December 11th, 2014, and welcome to another adventure, another episode of African Americans Ain't African, the talk show that proves without a shadow of a doubt that the so-called African American didn't find his way to America locked in the trunk of a ship. I'm your host, Buck Wylam, and tonight we're going to revisit roots, y'all. That's right. We're going to look at roots from a different perspective this holiday season and find out, share with the audience what roots is. You can reach us at 605-562-3140. Participant code 240670. Hashtag Roots We Visited. Could you mute your phones, please, if you're going to be making noise? Thank you. We want a clean broadcast tonight, so thank you very much. Roots Revisited. What is roots? You know, when we look at the Afrocentric community, all we hear is about roots, 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 roots. I played some Bob Marley earlier, and over in Jamaica, they even talk about roots, roots. A little over 30 years ago, a television series came out called Roots. And what that television show did to the psyche of the so-called African American will blow you away. And we're going to go back and look at it and show you some of the main things, some of the main players in this show called Roots. Well, joining me always is my co-host, Rick Moon. Rick, are you there, brother?
Yes, I am, brother, and hello to all the people out there tonight, and hopefully we can get into some roots tonight, and hopefully everybody have a different perspective than they had before the show began.
Hey, man, you still got that picture of Chicken George on your wall?
Nah, man, I never had a picture of Chicken George. Matter of fact, I think I never had a picture of any of them.
Yeah, Roots came out. Well, let's get into it. If you want to reach us again, call us at 605-562-3140. You can also reach us at AfricanAmericans.org. Got somebody order for us today. Thank you very much, sir. Your cup is on its way. We can also be reached in the on Facebook, in the African American Ain't African chat room. A lot of good information in there, y'all. Got some brothers and sisters in there bringing some information that's shedding light on this African charade that we're going through. Or you can email me at info@AfricanAmericans.org. Any questions you want to ask, if you need proof, confirmation, we can chat. I'm always reachable. Or you can reach us here at the radio station here at Black Talk Radio. Well, it's Christmas time. And this is a very important part of the year because in most parts of America it's cold. So this is the time when everybody's in the house. Not a lot of stuff is going on. And then if you're in the United States, you know what time it is. In the United States, if you live in the United States, we're in the middle of the Druid Festival. The Druids are the people who come from Europe. They would be like what your Goth people are today in America. The Druids were the people who, many say, held the dark secrets of the people that lived in England. They were the people who worked. They were Druids. They were not very well liked in the society, but they held all the secrets to what was going on in that time in England. And the Druids used to have festivals, and this time of year was when they had the majority of their festivals. Started for us with Halloween, trick or treat. But in the black, in the Negro, in the African American community, they are both the trick and the treat. Then you move on to Thanksgiving, the time of year when white people celebrate the decimation of your way of life. And the African American at Thanksgiving time is one of the biggest coon shows you'll ever see. Here you celebrate your own demise. Bobby Wright called it menticide. I think I'll call it the same. Check out who benefits at these holidays. Then we come up on Christmas, 3 days after the winter solstice. It's cold as hell. Everything in the countryside is dead. All the leaves are falling. Animals ain't nowhere around. It's the beginning of the dead of winter. Christmas is a holiday that is celebrated all over Europe and by the same people over here in America who've conquered us. Why we continue to do this, celebrate these holidays, I'll never know. But during this time, when everybody's in the house, when everybody's cold and bundled, 2 shows are going to be played back to back to back to back to back. One is The Color Purple. I never understood why people watch people suffer. Why movies, why a lot of the so-called black movies is we're not doing nothing but suffering. And we like to watch that shit. But they're going to show The Color Purple, and the other show they're going to show is the show called Roots. Now, if you looked at both of these shows or seen them before, you will know that there's the perpetual storm cloud overhead. Everything that happens to the people who look like the people who the people on the screen is representing. Because when they showed Roots, they were showing that to the market of so-called black people who were called at the time. When Roots came out, African Americans weren't called African Americans. When Roots came out, African Americans were called black. They were in one of their stages of the transformation that they're going through now. African American, the term wasn't used in 1977. It's a term that came later. That show was aimed at the attention of the people who would later become African Americans, and we'll get into that tonight. And I know some of you will have some questions about it. Roots set off a time bomb in the so-called black community at the time, because at that time, the show who it was made for, the so-called the black people at the time, it made them think that they came over here from Africa. And the story has so many holes in it, you'll laugh. But it has so many holes in it because the brother who wrote it, Alex Haley, and we'll get into him later, he plagiarized the whole story. But we're going to take a look at how one dude, and remember, Alex Haley was the cat who did the autobiography of Malcolm X. And we must ask ourselves, why is a brother writing an autobiography at age 37? These are how the so-called African American, the so-called black, the so-called Negro, these are how our thoughts and minds are shaped. We don't have nothing to do with it. We're just playing roles that we're paid to play most of the time, and then you'll see in Alex Haley's case. Stories are put out there for us to follow so we can follow a certain dictate or a certain mind frame that's going to be set out for us in the future, and that's what Roots accomplished. Check out the awards Roots got. Check this out. The awards were Roots got. And remember, this story is an artificial story. It never happened. Roots received 37 Emmy nominations. It won 9. It won a Golden Globe Award and a Peabody Award. Now, when we hear these awards that being won, I like to find out who gives these awards. Why are they given? And the Peabody Award is awarded for distinguished achievement and meritorious public service by television and radio stations, networks, producing organization, individuals, and the World Wide Web. So you get a Peabody Award because the achievement is distinguished and it did meritorious public service. This is the award that Roots got. It also received a Golden Globe Award, and a Golden Globe Award is awarded for excellence in film and television. It was the second most watched overall series finale in U.S. television history, and that's saying a lot because there's a lot of television being watched in America. So Roots won all these awards. I mean, it was, when it came out, I was a little kid. I really didn't pay attention to it. But Roots set off a psychological warfare in the indigenous people minds of North America that culminates to this day. We're confused about who we are because of the stories that we're told. A lot of them are TV stories. We watch a lot of TV. The TV washes our brains like none other. And many of our parents have been watching TV since TV came onto the scene. So Roots comes along, and it tells this story, and we're going to go through the story right now. But Roots, The Color Purple, all of these stories about the so-called indigenous people of America, it makes the indigenous, it puts like I said earlier, the perpetual cloud over the people's head and makes them think that this is their way of life. And it's not the way of life at all. It's just a story given to you by somebody, who wanted you to have it. Rick, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, Well, fortunately, when Roots came out, I was in like high school, so I saw it, and it really had a profound effect on our people. I mean, I seen guys come to school, they want to fight, just beat up people, everything. Every European they saw, they wanted to knock him out, which I wouldn't mind, but 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 it was kind of stupid though, that they were drawing that, and so it really did affect our community a lot, and our people today still think that that's a true story. As a matter of fact, Alex Haley, actually, when you were speaking of the autobiography of Malcolm X, Alex Haley was actually an informant on Malcolm. He was telling the Euro everywhere Malcolm went.
Well, that's why I said, how was Malcolm X getting an autobiography written on him at 37? Who does that? So a lot of things that the COINTELPRO does, we should pick up on these things. We should know them, because it's just making us not get to our point. That's why we got to be tighter than what we are. Just to watch us go down like this. Is this how we're going down? Is this how we're going down? People laying in the street. People got their hands up. What is that? I think we need to conduct ourselves the way that we were meant to be conducted, the way nature created us, and all this that we see will go away. So, back to Roots. So, if you watch the story of Roots, and it's on every Christmas. It's on around this time, all the time, and it's just, the story is slow. It's the people in there aren't winning. I mean, when you watch a movie or when you watch a TV show, you at least want the brothers and sisters to be winning, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, right? I mean, you saw, what's the movie where the four sisters robbed the bank?
Set it up.
I mean, it would have been cool if they would have got away. I mean, why not?
Because of who they were. That's why they didn't get away.
Right. So, that's what I'm saying. That's why we got to make our own movies, brother. But anyway, this movie comes on. Watch. Every time you go somewhere, if you go to somebody's house and they TV on, $2, Roots is on. It's like an American Icon story. But the story is set in Gambia, West Africa. One of the things that I like to do in these movies is look at the indigenous people who are playing these roles. This is another way that we get confused. You'll have Morgan Freeman playing Nelson Mandela. Wouldn't it be better if one of Nelson Mandela's journeymen played him, or somebody who's from South Africa played him, than to get somebody over here who's already said he's not an African to play him? And I think a lot of times in these movies, this is how we get confused. Because in Roots, Kunta Kinte is born to the brother named Thalmus Rasulala. Now, if you don't know Thalmus Rasulala, he was a brother. He played in many of the blaxploitation movies. Look him up. He's a pretty good actor. He never made it mainstream, but he was a good actor. So this brother, Thalmus Rasulala, and Cicely Tyson was Kunta Kinte's mother. Cicely Tyson, she's from Caribbean heritage. So she's a West Indian. She's an indigenous person to the Caribbean islands down here. They put her in the role of Kunta Kinte's mother because how we're trained in America, the Caribbean is separate from North America. The Caribbean is part of the Americas, from South America to Alaska, Canada, all that is America. The Caribbean is part of that. Here in America, we're taught that the people from the Caribbean are foreigners. They're not. They're a very vital part of the makeup of the people in America. They're a part of the Americas. So Cicely Tyson is playing this Gambian West African woman, and their son Kunta Kinte gets kidnapped. Out, you know the movie. If you saw the movie was so old, and I think I only watched the first episode, so I really didn't get into it. But they have Native Americans here playing these African roles. Thelma, if you look at Thelma's Rasalala, if you look at he was from Florida. If you look at him and if you look at ancient pictures of the brothers from Florida, he looks like a twin. So this is how they start to get us to think that this isn't our land. We don't belong to here. We come from somewhere else. These are some of the tactics that they use. One of the things about the show is how the show's set up. Now, when movies come on, I like to just ask a whole bunch of questions. And one of the questions I asked is, the ship that's coming from Gambia, West Africa, is coming to Annapolis, Maryland. This is in the movie Roots. It's a 3-month ship. It's a 3-month trip, and the ship has no provisions. So when you look at this ship, you have to ask, if you on a 3-month voyage from Africa over to America, how much water are these slaves going to need? How much food are they going to need? If they're on the high seas like that, aren't the waves higher than what they are? I mean, in the movie Roots, they made it seem like the boat trip was just like a skip across the lake. The Atlantic is treacherous waters. You saw the movie where the guys went out fishing up north. The perfect storm. A storm came and wiped them out. And they were close to the shore. What do you think when you're out in the middle of the Atlantic, what do you think those waves are out like there? And these are the stories, these are the narratives that we are given to help shape our mind. And many of us, we wrap our lives around these stories. So you expect me to believe a ship carrying 400 to 500 people crossing the Atlantic Ocean, crashing down on waves that have to be at least 50 feet, maybe more. And people are chained up, pissing, shitting on each other. You believe that story? You believe it? Good luck to you. Kunta Kinte was played early on by LeVar Burton. As Kunta aged, John Amos took over the role. Now this is very important because John Amos was popular on the TV show Good Times at the time. So this is how a lot of the mothers who had kids got in. This was their draw card. John Amos he was James. He was James on Good Time. So he bought them. I'm just thinking, I wonder how come JJ wasn't in Roots. What would have been his role? But John Amos, he drew the mothers in, the single mothers who had the children. Because when they tell you that Roots was the highest grossing, one of the most watched TV shows ever, this lets you know right then. I said it a long time ago. We are not 12% of the population. We are not 12. The indigenous people cannot be 12% of the population because they're the human resources that the conquerors used to build his empire. It is way more of us than they're telling us. But since we only go by what they tell us, we'll never know. Also, at the same time, another brother who was in another show at that time was Lawrence Hilton Jacobs. Lawrence Hilton Jacobs was in a popular show at the time called Welcome Back, Kotter. He was also involved in Roots. So that brought the youth, that brought the Negro youth, the black youth in to watch this TV show called Roots. Now, I just had to do some research on Roots because I didn't see these parts, but I had to connect the people with what, like say the young ladies at the time, Roots, the women who were like 25 to 30 had kids. When they were little, what TV shows were they watching? Who were the people that they were watching who was now up in Roots that would connect them to those people? So like what were the TV shows in 1965 that the young lady who has a a 10 or 12-year-old kid, what shows was she watching when she was a kid? And it's very important. This is very important. Most of the time through Roots, the black people have it bad. Lawrence Hilton Jacobs, Noah, he's a runaway. And in one of the beatings he's getting, he gives up his girlfriend because she wrote him a pass, like a passport she forged some papers for him. So he snitched on her. So she was sold and raped. Now this is how a lot of the ideas that we get in our mind, they come from these shows. Could you mute your phone, please? Thank you. Kizzy is sold and raped by a cat named Tom Moore. The actor who played Tom Moore was a dude called Chuck Connors. In the 1960s, Chuck Connors played in a TV show called The Rifleman. He was a cowboy, and one of the main things he did was hunt Indians. Who are the Indians? Kizzy. You.
Hey, Buck, excuse me. I know you dropping science, man, but we need to take a break there. Station break.
Is it that time?
It's that time, bro.
Listen, AfricanAmericans.org has plenty of information. If you want to find out who you are, start asking your grandparents, start asking your mom, start asking your uncle, start asking your aunts. African American Ain't African, come to the website. We got information. We have images of people that you may see your great-great-great-grandmom in a picture. Why? Because you are the indigenous Americans. AfricanAmericans.org. Come check us out. Going back to Kizzy. Kizzy is sold and raped by a cat named Chuck Connors. He played the Rifleman back when my mother was a little girl. These are the images that are thrust in our mind. So if my mother's looking at this and she sees this cat who rapes Kizzy as Chuck Connors, she's going to revert back to that. That's going to be ingrained in her mind, in her psyche. Now she comes up another generation. Kizzy is being raped by the same, I know it's a different character, but it's the same person. And everybody knows that Chuck Connors, he was that cowboy. And you know what cowboys and Indians, the symbolisms are deep. Kizzy returns home. Now, she finds that Kunta's dead. His name's not Kunta no more, it's Toby. So what she does is she scratches Toby out and writes Kunta Kinte on his gravestone. Very important part in the psyche of the so-called African American, because that's you scratching out. You are now labeled an African. I asked a couple of people, do they remember that scene? They're like, they remember that scene very well. He scratched it out. She scratched out Toby. Toby was an artificial character, of course. He was a slave. He wasn't himself. But she scratched that out and put Kunta Kinte there. And Kunta Kinte is what a lot of our people got that connection to Africa. And I think it subconsciously have Negroes believing that they are from Africa. Another part of the movie that was, I think, very important, and it speaks about how the so-called African American, how he treats foreigners, how the African American will look out for a foreigner before himself is beyond me. So in the movie Roots, a hungry and destitute young white couple from South Carolina, George and Martha Johnson, arrive and ask for help. The slave family takes them in. The white couple stays on with this black couple and becomes part of their community. I don't know what that part in the movie was about. I guess it was because the movie was so dull and black folk were just getting dogged out. They had to because it was a mini series. This thing went on for like a week. I mean, you getting beat down, your land is getting stolen, you have no proof, anybody can come do to you whatever you want, you're a sharecropper, blah. The story ends with Chicken George leading them from North Carolina to Tennessee, connecting the people in the movie with Alex Haley. Following the success of the original novel and the Milling series, Haley was sued by author Harold Callender, who asserted that Roots was plagiarized from his own novel, The African, published 9 years prior to Roots in 1967. The resulting trial ended with an all-out-of-court settlement and an admission from Haley that certain passages within Roots had been copied from Corlander's work. Separately, researchers refuted Haley's claim that, as the basis for Roots, Haley had traced his own ancestry back through slavery to a specific individual and village in Africa. After a 5-week trial in federal district court, Corlander and Haley settled the case with the financial settlement and a statement that Alex Haley acknowledges and regrets that various materials from The African by Harold Corlander found their way into his books. Roots during the trial preceding U.S. District Court Judge Robert J. Ward stated, "Copying there is period." In a later interview with BBC television, Judge Ward stated, Alex Haley perpetrated a hoax on the public. During the trial, Alex Haley had maintained that he had not read The African before writing Roots. Shortly after the trial, however, a minority studies teacher at Skidmore College, Joseph Brunnock, came forward and swore in an affidavit that he had discussed The African with Haley in 1970 or 71 and had given his own personal copy of The African to Haley, events that took place a good number of years prior to the publication of Roots. The reason this is important is because many of our people get that they're from Africa from this story. And the story's bullshit. It's a lie. But what we'll do, and this is something that we got to check out and we have to change. You can always put down something that's not working with you and pick up something that's new. You can always do that. We wrap our lives around foreign ideologies and bullshit, and we look like fools. And we'll teach our kids this, and it'll take us further and further and further away from who we are and what we're supposed to be doing and what our destiny is on this planet. So, Rick, I know you watch like Roots The Next Generation and Roots 2015.
Nah, I don't think so, man. Nah, the first one was enough for me.
Yeah, so the African American, and remember, and this is a couple of things that happened around this story is also significant too. It was a year or two later, probably not even that much, or before, that what went down in Jonestown, Guyana, the Jim Jones cult, that went down. See, that was around the same time. So in creating that mindset on the people who would now be perpetual slaves, consumer slaves, because that's what we do, help them build their empire, then we buy their products. That's the only purpose the African American serves for. Got to be honest. We got to be honest with that if we're ever going to change it. We help them build their empire, then we buy their products. How long are we going to keep going with that? Is that going to be viable for our children or grandchildren? Is it? It's not viable for us. It's not working for us. So we have a few callers on the line. Any callers have anything that they want to add or with the mini-series Roots?
Come on now. I know somebody out there got a story now about Roots now.
No, they may not. You know, because LeVar Burton never made it big. Did you notice that? I mean, he was touted to be a star after that. And I wonder about the actors. Did any of the actors know? Did any of the actors know what they were doing?
I think they did.
So why perpetrate a story like that to the masses of people over here? Is that what it is? Totally, solely, we'll do anything for money. Is that what it is? Is
That's the way of the boule.
that's the way of the what?
The boule.
What do you mean?
I said that's what boule people do. They sit there and they although they know what's going on, they want to get paid and they do what their master tell them. They ain't number slaves also.
But
They just well paid slaves.
But brother, it does. I mean, okay. So check this out. Here's an example. Bill Cosby's life. So I hear that the sister Beverly Johnson has come forward and said that he drugged her. So is all that fame, is all of that wealth, is all of that what you received in life worth to be on the world stage like that? You know, even after your son died, because from the way it sounded like Mr. Cosby, he's a patriarch. What happens to him? Is this the way your life ends? You end on this note after all the good that you supposedly done for the people? 337, you had a comment or question?
Emil Ovase, I do have a root story. If you want to hear it, I could sling it out there for you.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
At 337, we'll
Well,
get 562. Wait 1 second. 337 right after 562. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
okay. You want me to go or I
Yes.
can wait? You know, I
No,
don't want to.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, when Roots came out, I was 17, and I remember not wanting to watch it. I had siblings who were older than me, and I think what you said about that Lawrence Hilton Jacobs, that's why they wanted to watch it. I didn't want to watch it. It was, I felt like a disconnect from it, actually. So to later find out that Alex Haley plagiarized, it's like huge for me. I had not known. I just found out, a few months ago. Very interesting. So we need to look at this and stop overlooking the facts.
Well, the information is old. He had to pay the guy $650,000, but that's minuscule to the damage that movie did to the psyche of the so-called African American. 337, you had a question or comment?
Yeah, I had a comment. I just, whenever I distinctly remember, I was about 13 or 14 years old when it aired around, like you said, around the holidays, and it came on, and I remember getting upset. I was real mad, and my mom was like, I'm asking my mom, like, you knew about this, because no one ever told me that we, were enslaved or nothing like that, and I was 13 and I ain't never heard that, until I seen it on that movie, and I felt something, I smelled something fishy about it, I didn't really believe nothing, me and my mom bumped head a lot about, her religious beliefs and all that, but, the Roots movie, it really did a big number on our psyche because, the people were really attached to that story, like an umbilical cord attached to a baby, like that's where they came from.
Yes.
And they believed it so much that they, if you try to tell them, and I tried so many times, if you try to tell them something contrary to what they already, have set in their mind, especially the older, like the late 40s and 50s, they set, they gonna die. Like the old saying, like they always say, everywhere I go, I lived in California to Ohio, and say I'm born a Catholic, I'll die a Catholic, and those slogans that they say, to keep their mind in mush, and the root story is just it's the whole shebang when it comes down to keeping people's minds in that wallow of untruth, You know, it's just not there for me. You know, my wife, she came along to the understanding that, you know, a lot of things that we learn in the society has been fabricated, just like the walls we have around our house to the cars we drive. You know, and we just trying to understand better, you know, and learn more so that we can go forward in our existence as, you know, Americans, you know, as, you know, human beings, you know, whatever we desire, hopefully, you know, in the near future.
Well,
you know,
I think hope is kind of, you know, we're just going to have to get busy to it, you know, and I think, you know, like a lot of people say a lot of time, you got to stop talking. Well, a lot of times when people say that, that just means that they got to listen closer, because we all have to get to work. It's not just one person. It's just not one group or one organization. It's all of us. And we're going to have to come on that real quick. Rick, you had a question or you had something to add, Rick?
No, well, I just think that this same game that was playing back then, it's starting to play, come back into effect now. As you see lately, they've been remaking a lot of those movies, you know, like 12 Years a Slave, Django, and all these other types of movies. But they kind of changed it a little bit. They playing with our intelligence, and they start showing you stuff in these movies that will actually happen. For instance, if you watch the movie 12 Years a Slave, this guy who was an African, played by an African, this guy is from Saratoga, New York. That was the character he played. Well, they said he was a slave from Georgia. That's what they claim he was, a runaway from Georgia. Now, what that is they telling you that a lot of these so-called slave trade routes were actually from going north to south. You were talking about the Caribbean there. A lot of slaves were changed to the Caribbean too. I mean, why go all the way thousands and thousands of miles when they're right there? When they're right there, you know, you can get them right within hundreds of miles of you. Just take them somewhere where they ain't never been. You didn't know anybody in Georgia, so it was easy to take them down there. You know, and a lot of it, and if you watch the movie Django, they show you a lot of how our females were treated in those days, those beatings that they had to take, you know, from and a lot of times it was our own people and not just white folks. So, you know, a lot of this stuff is you know, they just changing it around. It's basically the same thing, and it is even starting to act out in real life now. I mean, is it, Buck? Is it any difference between Roots, what happened to the brothers and sisters in Roots, and what's going on all over this country right now?
No, not at all. Not at all. 813, you had something you wanted to add?
Yes, hi. I just wanted to touch a little bit on the question that you posed with regards to how that miniseries Roots actually affected the psyche of people during that era. And I was at that time was like 15, 16 years old, and I, you know, living in Queens, New York, and after that series aired, the beginning of it, several young people my age in my community was outraged, and we really started getting into the whole pro-black, you know, Afrocentric movement. So it really for myself took me away from what my family, what my elders, what my mothers and my aunts were talking about in terms of who we were. They always talked about we were Indian and we're from this tribe or that tribe. Well, when that series came out, I totally disregarded what my elders were telling me, and I went Afrocentric just because of that movie. I felt like they could, that was me. I was so attached to what was the images that were being displayed that I thought that was my heritage, because my elders could not tell me any more than that we were Indians. They couldn't give me more. And it seems like that movie was able to give me more, and everything else that was out there, I was able to get information, and it started resonating with me. So to answer your question, yes, that movie did put us, do a serious psychological mind game on not only myself, but a lot of people that I knew in that era. But now, thank goodness, I know who I am, and I realized that wasn't who we are.
Could you see the story? Did you notice this when you're watching the story? Because I notice a lot of times things happens in movies, and a lot of times we'll miss it. But I want to know if you have 400 to 500, and I use the 400 to 500 picture because that's the picture that showed to most of us all the time of these slaves coming over here. And I counted, and it was like 440 something people. How much water do you have to have? And let's just take the root story. How much water do you have to give these cats water every day? And they're in the bottom of a ship sweating like a pig. They need hydration. How much water would you need? And how come you don't see that? Where'd they keep the water in? The ship would have to be full of barrels. So when these stories are told to us, it's like the Santa Claus story. He goes to everybody's house, but his suit is never dirty. Those type of things, I think we have to be more astute of when these stories are being told, and using some critical thinking skills that we all possess to question some of these things that we're being told. African Americans Ain't African Radio. We're on the Black Talk Radio Network. Please come in over and check us out at AfricanAmericans.org. We're on Facebook and African Americans Ain't African chat room. Come and join us. A lot of good information over there. 337, you had a question or comment?
No, not at the moment.
Okay, so Rick. So what you say, Rick?
Wow. I think that we're gonna have to start coming up with some new ways, man. Some new ideas. We need to start trying to get the word out to people, about all these things. And like I was asking the question in the last show, I mean, they don't have any reason to do anything for you. They don't have any reason to like us or anything. So why would they even do anything for us? And we sit there and play the old victim role and talk about and asking other people to do what we should have been doing ourselves.
Well, Rick, why do you find it so hard? Why do you think? It was like the young brother was saying. The people in the 40s and 50s, they stuck. They not gonna change. Now I know their parents are done. I know the civil rights group is finished. They think that what they've did, they're not looking at it from this point of view. They're not looking at it from their children's point of view. They're looking at it from their point of view, and they're about to be gone. So when he say the next generation after that, they stuck in their ways, was he right about that? Because if this information is cut off, this information is cut off, the African American is going to be a foreigner. because the people that are coming over now are setting up laws, making it possible, making laws to fit them. And the politics in America, as far as the black side goes, is horrible. At least that's what everyone tells me. So all the black politicians, all they talking about is getting paid, and that's what it's been seeming like. If you look at all the cities with black mayors, black city councils, what's going on? No creativity, no new ideas to take none of these cities nowhere. And these are the people who we say are the best of the best.
And another question: what benefits have we gotten out of this whole deal with all of these so-called black politicians? You know, I'm still waiting for my 40 acres in Mew, and I'm give me the Mew. Hey, I'll make the 40 acres.
You know what, though? I really think there's something about this that we're missing out on. It's something about this. We're missing out on this land, because I think one of the things, when they constantly tell us that we're only 12% of the population, it makes us look like we're smaller than we really are. And I don't think that's the case.
Yes, I agree with that, because I look at it this way. I know that most of the slaves that were here were our people, Americans, and then I think about, you know, when I was coming up in grade school and stuff, and, you know, through high school, and getting to know other people, and, you know, myself, my mother, she had 8 children, in which herself, it was 19 of them. My father came from a family of 11. I mean, you know, and most of the people that I was talking to that were our people were saying the same thing, came from big, large families.
Now, do you know what that was?
Hey, we was knocking some boots.
Yeah, but why?
Well, I think we were more in tune with nature, and we were doing what nature was telling us to do at the time.
But why all the children?
Because we needed children to farm the land.
Right. Exactly. And so that's what I mean. We don't do that no more. So the women had all the children, and what did the mother teach the children? How to work the land. Simple.
Right.
Simple. And so the women had all the baby because she couldn't work all that by herself, or he couldn't work that all by himself, so you had to populate it. So, okay, so take that, because the same in my family. My grandfather comes from 13. My grandmother comes from like 6. That wasn't big at that time, but they came from, as opposed to now. So now, let's jump that forward 100 years. Are we growing? Is the tree bearing more fruit? What's happening? Or are we drying out? Looking at it from a generational standpoint, what's happening to us? And do we really care? Because it's some brothers and sisters out there that life means nothing, absolutely nothing to them. Life means nothing. So, what are we going to do about it? Are we on our way out? It sure looks like it. It sure looks like it. Where are our life-affirming institutions? Where have we said, you know what, we can't keep going the way where we've been going because it's killing us? We love it. We scared to try something else. We scared to get our hands dirty. Give us a call, 605-562-3140. to participate, ask a question, call in, ask a question. 240-670-POUND. African Americans Ain't African Radio. We're talking about roots. The psychological impact that roots had on the African American. Now you have people calling themselves African Americans. You have this guy, William Skip Gates. He has made a mint telling people that they're from Africa. And if you want to get a good idea about this DNA test, check out a sister called Dr. Fatima Jackson. Dr. Fatima Jackson. She gives you a insight on DNA that's not really talked about. And there's that video that 1000 Go Ahead put out called The DNA Hoax. Check that out and check out what DNA is. See, they just use that. They use these kind of things for us because we don't have our own science set up to check what they're talking about. So anything they say, we got to go with it because we don't ask questions. Just what they say goes, and that's what we go by. And so that's how we're living. Rick, you had something to add?
Always gotta show you something. You know, you could never. Where you see that at? Or where's that document at? Where? Hey, I want to say this real quick. A lot of people always asking, well, where was that written down at? Or I've never seen that before. Well, guess what? We were in tune with nature. So why do we need to write anything down if we're in tune with nature? We need to write nothing down. That's why we don't have documentation sometimes.
Well, I think what I'm saying with that is, and since the written word has been written down, how has the world evolved? Has it gotten better or worse? And looks like from the past 5,000 years, we've been on a straight spiral downward. Most people in the world don't even have fresh water to drink. Think about that. Most people in the world live on less than $2 a day. And you got CEOs making 100 times what the whole payroll for the company or the corporation is. You just have people who are greedy, people who don't like to share, and the people who worship them. And the people who worship them are the consumers. Because consumers consume everything. They got to have it. They'll have one in the closet that they bought this time last month, forgot they had it, and buy it again. Their job, an African American's job, is to consume, period. They're supposed to be producers. If you look at the early art and if you look at the early structures of American societies, you'll see what they did. Go to some of the museums in some of your towns. Go to some of the archives where you live and check out the indigenous people, especially if you live in the Southeast. I'm sure it's all over. I've seen it as far north as Indiana, Chicago. But check out some of the archives in some of the states where you live, and you will see people who look, just go do it. I mean, I know the movies are nice, but by the time you get 20, movies should be finished. Go check out some of these museums and some of these archives and see the art and see the history that's in there, and it's your history. And once you see it, you cannot refute it. Okay, our last call going out for anybody who have anything they want to add or anything they want to say.
Yes, I'd like to say something.
Yes, ma'am.
When are we going to get sick of being pimped by everybody?
That's a good question.
I mean, how many of us, once we understood the game of disconnecting us from America, became angry and felt the burning desire to do research and to learn every single thing, our contributions to the world.
I mean,
and I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
That's just something that I don't understand. How well, I'll say for myself, how once I realized that, okay, my grandmamas didn't lie, and my grandmamas told me the truth. And I started researching like crazy because I had wasted so many years following the African story, the African ancestry story. So what I personally did, every African that I've ever met, I've asked them about the African slave trade. And they have all told me that that is nothing that was passed on to them by their grandmamas. Absolutely no truth to it.
Now, these are Africans you're talking about.
Yes, these are people from the continent of Africa
now,
who came over here, who are, who just came over here within the last, like the first and second generation African.
Yes. Now, why is it? Now, this is what I don't get. Why is it?
Okay, but let me say this last thing. And then what happened is that one day I realized, why the hell am I asking these people something that my grandmama's already told me? Why would what's wrong with me that I'm asking these people as though my grandmama's lied to me?
Yes.
Why am I taking word of somebody else when I was already told who I was?
And what did you come up with?
I was a damn fool.
Wow.
And it's the truth. Now, within recent years, within the last year and a half, me knowing who I am and accepting who I am, but me asking the Africans, I'm just trying to get, inquire and ask them different things so that I could get a handle on to see if they know, anything about what they were told in school and everything, and they have nothing that they were even told in school. And this is as of recent that I've been asking about what they've been told in school after years of being told that their grandmamas never passed on this story to them.
Well, let me ask you this, ma'am. Why is it that do you think it's roots that did that to us?
It was Roots. Roots set the stage. However, it's I think it's a lot of organizations or religions and or whatever. I think it's a pimp game. No one wants to spend money on learning who they are, learning that they're indigenous. But we certainly would spend money to learn that we're Africans. And I think it's a cop-out. I think we're not ready to do anything to move, to improve our lifestyle. We're ready to move our children out of the dark. So therefore, we'll sit with this African story because then therefore we're safe.
Well, how does that make us safe?
That makes us safe that, well, we don't have to confront our present situation of being mistreated on our own land.
So you're saying that we're just silent and we're just taking it because we don't want to step up. We don't want to face the consequences, so to say.
Exactly.
That's an interesting post, and so I can see that makes it all the more better. How come brothers are hanging on to that African thing? Because it's real. To get brothers to work to dig a hole is a chore.
Exactly.
And I have to agree with you. We've become comfortable, and I don't see how. I really don't see how, like a judge who sits up every day and send brothers to jail, I'd be wondering what they be thinking when they be seeing these cops killing us. I'd be wondering what African American cops be thinking, and people who are in the military. What are they thinking when they out here serving this country, but knowing back home his brothers and sisters are getting killed? I wonder what goes through a person's mind on that.
I'm gonna lose my job. if I say something.
Yeah, that's what it is. Well, anyway, the comment of the week is from Ryan Tutmos. The only state of one's being's acts and existence relative to each and every individual alone is their state of mind, mentality. The only nation relative to each and every being alone is the utilization of their imagination, image, nation, to create one's own image and ideas. Following anyone or anything else's images will play out as your hallucinations. Hallucinate nations. Peace. I want to send a special shout out to Ron Totmos for that nice piece. And I also like to thank the people for tuning in tonight and listening to us. You could have been doing a whole bunch of other things, but you came to share with us, and I really want to appreciate it. And I want to say thank you to the people who put in their input, because what we're trying to do here at African American is just make our communications better, where we can communicate with each other, we can talk with each other on some common ground and not on a whole bunch of bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
So, Rick, did you have anything you want to close out with?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, like earlier when you were talking about things that we need to do, like going to the museums and checking out things like that. Hey, please go to the forest and see yourself, and take somebody with you. I mean, this is stuff that you can see. It's not no fairy tale or something that you might can see, like some guy who supposedly made everybody in the world, but ain't nobody never seen him. This is something that you could just go and see how you connect to everything. And as a matter of fact, I'm working on a show right now to try to tell people why, what it means to be indigenous to this landmass called America, and what we needs to start doing, and the consequences of it if we don't do it. So, with that, I just want to say good night to everybody. And
okay, well, we're going to be looking forward to that. Yeah, hallucinate nations. We can't be hallucinating, y'all. We got to pick it up, share, teach the babies. Until next week, we'll see you next week. Everybody have a good evening. Everybody have a good weekend. Peace.
Good night.